In a spiritual awakening process, we have two types of stress that an awakening will affect. The first type of stress is one, the baggage of stress that you carry in whatever you've been carrying as a result of the experiences you've had, and of that stress, also the type of stress response that you have, which is really going to affect the second part of stress in a spiritual awakening, which is the stress of an awakening in itself, which comes as a result of your heightened sensitivities. It comes as a result of change. It comes as a result of breaking relationships, breaking paradigms, changing relationships, changing paradigms, a lot of upheaval, which is stressful. How we deal with part B, so how we deal with the second type of stress, which comes as a result of the awakening in itself, because also the other type of stress that comes with the awakening is the sensory overload, which will put our system, our organism, into a state of panic, into a state of something is attacking us, into a state of where our parasympathetic system might go down a bit, and then we are a little bit more activated in terms of our stress hormones. We might even suffer from adrenal stress because our adrenal glands are depleted. We are bombarded with so much that is going on into our system, and what causes the stress is when we are not still enough to allow for the process to unfold in us. More on that a little bit later, but coming back to the two types of stress. Now, the stress that we are already carrying, so that'll be the baggage that we are coming in with, plus the kind of stress response we have, will really determine what happens when you're bombarded with this heightened and sensory overload. So your senses are heightened, you've got all these sensory overload, there's an overload, there's an overwhelm, right? So in that, your original stress response will kick in as a coping mechanism. So you'll want to reach out for the familiar things in dealing with this spiritual awakening itself, which in itself will create another little bit of stress, because you're then using what was from the old paradigm for the new paradigm or the shift of consciousness that has happened, which is also what prolongs the spiritual awakening process, which is also becomes another source of stress or distress, stagnation, what have you. Now, the original stress response also gets affected by the spiritual awakening and the new consciousness paradigm, because your awakening itself produces various chemicals inside of us, and some of this will literally tame the survival instinct. You will want to thrive, and you'll find that you are thriving. It just depends on what part of the process you're in. Now, I have recently done a post about awakening the human within us and taming our animal instincts, right? That spirituality is of no use to us when we're not able to traverse, go from the animal consciousness to the human conscious. Now, what the spiritual awakening process does quite seamlessly is it tames that animal consciousness. One, not only are your senses turned inward, when they are turned outward, you will find that the attention is on other things. It'll be coming from another part of your consciousness. So, not the animal consciousness, but the human consciousness. The animal consciousness is more about us meeting our needs. But as we go on to the human consciousness, our stresses, our stress response as well is different. We don't have so much fear, so it's not coming from fear based. our survival. We're not worried about our survival because now you know you're not just this body. Now you know there is so much more. You've opened yourself up to everything, and you know that, you know, no matter what, no matter how tempting it is to react right now, no matter how much you want to get back into that survival trap, you know that your back is covered. You know that you're always going to be here, right? So, our stress response, the original way of dealing with stress, will be eventually tamed, and we will develop a different way of dealing with change, and our attitude towards change will change. So you will have a very different attitude towards change. You will not be that rattled as you were before, because a spiritual awakening literally has the power in it to completely rehash not only your stress response, but change what's coming to you, because you will no longer be responding or reacting to stresses, to life situations, to events as you did, right? So you're no longer treading between eggshells. You're going to now move. Now, coming back to the second type of stress, which is what the spiritual awakening in itself brings and can be quite stressful. One, it is stressful because of the upheaval and the change that we will find, moving from the familiar to the unknown, right? So when you're in transition, when you suffer the breakdowns, and you suffer the breakdowns of relationships, careers, and what have you, right? Then there is no personality, dealing with the fact that there is no personality. And all of that, coupled with the sensory overload, coupled with all of these heightened senses, and that you can feel everything. Yes, even the bliss, even those fantastic, amazing states will also in themselves have a level of stress. Remember these positive stresses and negative stresses. So positive is what's going to make you want to keep going, and the negative one is what's going to want you to coy and go back into your shell. Either one are needed. Either one will kick in when they are meant to. So when you're meant to go back into your shell, when you're meant to go back into that cave, you will. When you're meant to go back out there, you will. So either way, folks, a spiritual awakening literally rehashes the way that you deal with stresses, with change, right? And you will find that it tames the survival instinct. Lots of love, take care, and happy awakening.